Today's episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast is brought to you by Poor Richard's Cafe and Star Local Media. Poor Richard's Cafe, Plano's oldest restaurant since 1973. They are open daily from 5:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., serving the three most important meals of the day: breakfast, lunch, and dessert. It is true Texas home-style cooking made with love and grit. That is Poor Richard's Cafe, located off of Avenue K in Plano. Welcome to another episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch. I'm the sports editor at Star Local Media, and I am being joined by Devin Hassan and Justin Thomas. We're going to continue our week-long discussion of the some early season happenings in our coverage areas for soccer. We've talked ad nauseum about basketball, so I want to just put that on the back burner for a week and just show some love to soccer, as our obviously our coverage areas tends to breed plenty of teams that make deep playoff runs, some state champions and whatnot. So I want to show some love to the soccer fans out there, because soccer, I feel like soccer kind of comes in just a weird spot of the year, just coverage-wise for us, because you have district soccer gets rolling right as the home stretch and the really important games for basketball are taking place, and then you got to parlay that into playoff games and whatnot. So I mean, there's times when I've finished covering basketball and there's like 3 or 4 games left in the regular season for soccer.
It's tough.
Yeah. So it's tough to keep heads and tails with all that kind of goes on, because I guess we're approaching that point in the year where we've got that. Then baseball and softball is going to be happening. We got wrestling and swimming and all that going on. So
first track meet's coming up, I think.
Oh yeah, I was seeing people were posting track results on Twitter over the weekend. Yeah. So I want to try to find a way to squeeze in and show some love to what's happening so far in soccer. So on Monday we discussed the happenings out in 6A. Today we're going to focus on 5A, including a couple districts that began on Tuesday over in 8-5A and 13-5A with you guys. Justin, when we were kind of laying out our, because it's so weird when we have to lay out our district predictions for this new district now, because we just we don't have the familiarity with the Denton ISD programs quite like we did in 14-5A was, because we covered every school in that district. So but nevertheless, it feels like at least early on that for programs like the Colony, like the soccer districts could be a pretty nice shot in the arm for both programs.
Yeah, definitely. Both they were in a tough district last year with Prosper and some of those other teams, and they both made the playoffs. Neither of them had made the playoffs since 2014, and so they both got out last year as number 4 seeds. And I would expect them to both not only get back to the playoffs, but I would be very surprised if they're 4th seeded again. I think these are two teams that are not only going to make the playoffs, but could easily take the district titles. Yeah. And I guess when you look at how we predicted things, everybody kind of seems to agree. Everybody seems to have the Colony up there in the top 1 or 2.
What could possibly go wrong?
Like I said, coming off good seasons, and I think they just kind of set up in this district a little better than in that tough district that they were in last year in 14-5A. The boys team, they have some big losses. That was, last year was a kind of a year they were kind of circling because of all the senior leadership they had, and they lost like 2 of the program's better players, all time, Spencer Maglehayes and Angel Lopez. But they do have some good talent coming back. They have first teamer John Carter back, and they have 8 other players that made the all-district team in some form or fashion. So looking pretty good, and they're out to a pretty good 7-2 start. So things are looking pretty good for Lee Weddle's team over there, even though they have some holes to fill for sure.
At the very least, because this is one of those too where you think of the benefits of being in 8-5A versus 14-5A. Obviously, still a long way to go before the playoffs, but at the very least, you're not having to worry about a first-round matchup against anybody from Frisco ISD, which was goodness, it's just such a nightmarish draw.
The girls ran into Wakeland in the first round, so make the playoffs in 5 years and then play the state champion. Speaking of the girls, though, pretty high hopes for them too. I know, looking at the predictions, according to us, it could be a 2-way race between Little Elm and the Colony. But I like this Colony's squad. Their goalie, Maddie Sandoval, she's one of the best keepers in the whole area, regardless of class. She's really good. And then they have 6 other all-district players coming back too. So this is a team that has some talent returning, and they're a real deep and versatile team. They can win games in a lot of matches, in a lot of different ways.
That's right. We're talking soccer, Justin. Come on.
So like I said, I have pretty high hopes for both of these Colony teams to not only get into the playoffs, but to be in the hunt for the district championships.
Devin, how about you over with West Mesquite and Poteet adding 13-5A? That's a district that got rolling on Tuesday, I should say. So nevertheless, what is your read on what the Wranglers and the Pirates stand to do in the coming weeks?
Well, on the girls' side, we actually have a wide open district race because there's no more Highland Park.
That's right.
So it's,
what a sigh of relief.
Yeah, and that's what
we'll get to them in a minute.
Yeah. It's like, okay, well, we'll actually break down who's going to finish second behind Highland Park. But West Mesquite is a team that's kind of flirted with the playoffs in recent years. They've got some players. Poteet has been kind of the standard, 22 playoff appearances in a row. But it's a different Poteet team. Longtime coach Kelly Thomas retired in the offseason. They have a new coach in Brittany Callahan. They got some familiar faces, Lily Meha, Marissa Vasquez, Haley Bambico, but a lot of new players, just first-year coach and a lot of new players.
Yeah.
But, they do have that pedigree. You don't make the playoffs 22 years in a row without having, the talent to reload year after year. And I mentioned I was, joked about Highland Park, but this is a Poteet team that competed well with Highland Park in some of those teams. And they've had different district opponents year after year, and they've always been able to measure up and make the playoffs. This new district, we'll have to see what happens. I know Terrell had some success with both the boys and the girls at the 4A level, but they're coming up to 5A. But especially with that, you're just kind of looking at that 7-team district.
It's a weird mix.
Yeah, it's an odd mix, but I don't see any reason why the Poteet girls can't make it 23 in a row. Same thing on the boys' side. Poteet's been a perennial playoff team. They've got a nice group back: Anthony Ibarra, Steven Martinez, Miguel Rosales. West Mesquite is the one that intrigues me. They advanced. They made it to the playoffs last year, and then lost a heartbreaker to Frisco Centennial, I believe, in the second round. Really good group. Carlos Lara, Edgar Lopez, Yannick Easy, Jose Estrada are all back. Their outstanding goalkeeper, Fabian Luna, already has 8 shutouts. But the guy that makes it go is Junior Saavedra. And this guy was probably the best individual player I saw all of last year.
Okay.
I mean, just an electric player with the ball. Just sets up teammates. He's got 14 goals already this season. And just one of those guys that can change a game by himself. And I think with him in the fold, he's that big of a difference maker where I think West Mesquite can probably win this district.
Wow. So, all right. Well, then we just mentioned Highland Park earlier, and obviously with Mesquite ISD being free from the reign of terror that Highland Park will inflict on many a team on the soccer pitch, that's now Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD's problem.
Yeah, they get to deal with them. But having said that, I still think they would prefer this district over the district they were lumped in over the last 2 years.
Just because, if you're just playing for, I would assume that Highland Park is the on-paper favorite in both boys and girls draws in this district.
Certainly on the girls' side. I did notice the Colony, we were talking about the Colony boys, they got a nice 4-1 win over Highland Park boys earlier this year, so I'm not exactly sure what they have, but...
Yeah, the boys isn't quite the juggernaut that the girls are.
Not quite the same, and... some of these Carrollton teams know that very well. Creekview had a couple of really good teams that ended up squaring off with Highland Park in the playoffs and coming up just short. But outside of Highland Park, I feel like this sets up pretty well for the Carrollton schools. Not knowing too much about the Dallas ISD programs, I would be surprised if all 6 Carrollton soccer programs don't make the playoffs out of this district.
They could get 2 through 4 conceivably?
I definitely think so. And not knowing what the boys have, I could see maybe Turner giving them a little challenge on the boys' side even.
Yeah.
They lose Guy Esquivel, last year's Offensive Player of the Year, but Esteban Ramirez should be able to help shoulder that load. And when you look at kind of the starts they're off to, they're all kind of right there, just above 500. So, and playing a little tougher competition than I think they'll see in the district. So, I think all 6 teams are going to make the playoffs out of Carrollton.
Interesting, yeah. And even over in 14-5A, as talented as that district was, you had a program like Turner that was in the mix every year.
Yeah. And like I said, some of those Creekview teams, you know how some of these teams can go up and down, but they've definitely had the talent where they've had some teams that were every bit regional contenders, if they didn't have to play Highland Park every year.
Yeah.
Well, but that should be a competitive district too, because a lot of those DISD teams, particularly on the boys' side, are very solid.
Okay.
Are very solid. So that's usually been a first-round matchup for them.
Maybe I'm selling them a little short there. Then.
Well, not so much on the girls in my, I guess, recent experience, but the boys' teams have generally been solid. So that could be one of those districts that come down to the wire all the way.
Yeah.
And that's that is a look at what's going on in over in the Colony, over in Carrollton, over in Mesquite, and obviously we've still got a few more markets in 5A to discuss. Some happenings out in Frisco, Little Elm, Lake Cities, and whatnot. And we will bring on Taylor Ragland and Brian Murphy in a moment to discuss those. But first, gotta shine that student athlete spotlight. And speaking of Frisco ISD, the Frisco Wakeland boys and girls both won state championships last year. Both are primed to be plenty talented once again. And one of the key reasons behind that is veteran Manny Diaz De Leon, a former state tournament MVP, I believe, for the Wolverines. Brian Murphy had a chance to catch up with Manny to talk about the Wolverines as they look to defend their state championship, and we will see what he had to say after a word from this sponsor. Today's podcast is brought to you by Star Local Media. 14 newspapers and websites with a print distribution of 270,000 homes and monthly page views of 600,000 online. Star Local Media, your community voice for news. And now, let's get back to the podcast.
All right, I'm here with Wakeland's Manny Diaz De Leon. You've been with this program for the last 3 years now. This is your third season with the varsity program. Your big senior year. How's your senior year going so far?
Well, it's good. Definitely a big pressure with that. My bad. I don't know what to say.
No, man.
Some advice. What I can say.
Here, okay. We'll start over. 3, 2, 1. I'll count it down. All right, 3.
Wait. Do you have some advice, like what I could say or something?
For just, how would you say your? If we're just talking your senior year, how's it going?
Like soccer-wise or like?
Yeah, soccer-wise. Yeah. Well, I can hit you with another question to start.
Let's go for another question.
Okay. I'll ask you what it was like to win state your first 2 years on varsity. Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1. All right, I'm here with Wakeland's Manny Diaz De Leon, senior midfielder here with the Wolverines, who was a big part of both state titles the previous 2 seasons. Manny, what was it like? Your first 2 years on varsity to win a state title.
Well, it was definitely a very memorable moment. Very unexpected. I did not expect to win state my first year on varsity, especially not to win it the year after that also. It's just a great experience, and I hope I can do it again this year.
Now, what's that feeling like? When the clock hits 0 and y'all realize y'all are state champions. You've done it twice.
Yeah.
Talk me through those emotions. How exciting is that?
Well, it's very exciting. Especially when that final buzzer goes off, you just realize all the work, all the hard work, and pain you've been through, it just pays off. And
Now, do you feel like there's more pressure this time around your senior year now that y'all have won it twice, and to try and three-peat? And do you feel like you get other teams give y'all their best games against y'all because they want to beat the 2-time defending state champions?
Coach says it all the time. We have a big X on our back, and everyone's just trying to go out there and beat Wakeland. That's their number one goal, I feel. But it's definitely big pressure that, my senior year, I feel like we have to go out there and win it, especially since we're trying to accomplish something that no one's done, which is get the three-peat, and definitely a big weight on our back.
Now, you brought up the three-peat. How capable is this team of three-peating?
I think this team is very capable. It all goes down to hard work and dedication, how much we want it, and how hard we're willing to work to get there, and that goes to.
Now, which players this year have really stepped up, or what players are going to be really important members of this team if y'all are going to three-peat?
Well, I feel like everyone on the team on varsity last year that won it really wants to go for that. Really wants to go for that three-peat, make it happen. And then we have a couple freshmen that got moved up to varsity this year. that have made some really good contributions to the team, and I feel like they're really going to step up and help us get this goal accomplished.
Now, who are those freshmen?
Brendan Bezdek and Ryan Greener. I think they're going to be a big contributor since they're getting some pretty good playing time, because I feel like they're performing well on the field.
Now, lastly, how tough is this district? I know y'all know firsthand. Y'all finished 4th last year in the district, and then y'all went on to win state. And now this year, y'all had 2 more teams to districts. You have 10 teams. You know, you're starting district play, like pretty much New Year's. You play 18 games. How tough is that, and how much tougher does it make this already tough all Frisco district?
Well, I mean, especially with a very good competitive soccer program here with FC Dallas, I feel like that brings a lot of soccer players to the area, and I feel like these high schools have really good players, and that makes it really tough on us because it's just hard competition every Tuesday and Friday that we go out there.
Thanks again to Manny Diaz De Leon for taking the time to chat with Brian for our Student Athlete Spotlight. And with that, we've got Brian Murphy, Taylor Ragland on to help round out our discussion of some of the happenings in 5A soccer. So let's, we can go, we can talk Frisco ISD, we can go 8-5A, which began on Tuesday. Frisco ISD, as is the case in all these sports, is 5-6 games into their schedule already. Let's talk some 8-5A just because it feels like this district could be a pretty fun one.
Yeah.
I'm anticipating between the back and forth. Justin was just on talking about the Colony, but you've got the Colony, you've got Lake Dallas, you have Little Elm. I guess let's start with Little Elm, Brian, because I think at least as far as our preseason picks go, take those for what you will. But I think we foresee some pretty strong things on the girls' side for the Lady Lobos.
Yeah, so, like in the 6A pod, I mentioned how Prosper was off to a hot start in non-district. They're undefeated 10-0. Well, Little Elm, they're right there, 9-1-1 with a hot start, and, really, really impressive wins so far. We'll find out a lot this week when they start things off against the Colony.
That'll be a big litmus test right there.
Yeah, and that rivalry is pretty good in every sport. Little Elm and the Colony, they hate each other. You should see them play basketball. It's a blast. But like I said, they have big wins over Duncanville, Burleson, Joshua. They won the Waller Classic tournament earlier in the year. They beat Longham Creek, Duncanville, and Porter in that tournament to really set the tone for the Lobos. They also have a new head coach. Ironically, so Jimmy Langford, he was there the previous 2 years, former state champion with McKinney Boyd and McKinney North. He's now at Wakeland. To take over Sid Curry's spot after he retired last year. And so he leaves, and, they bring in a guy from Abilene named Manuel Cordova. He was head coach at Abilene High. And, he's moved to the Metroplex. He told me in the offseason when he took the job, he's like, I wanted to come to the DFW, and that was my chance. And really good program, a program that's been bounced in the first round the previous 2 years because they had to play the Frisco district in the first round both times, so they lost to Centennial, Frisco Centennial, a team that won state 3 or 4 years ago. So just tough luck of the draw, but they're locked and loaded. They have a lot of upperclassmen this time around. They've been a young team the previous few years, and I fully expect for them to win this district. No pressure, Lady Lobos.
Yeah, it feels like this district, just kind of comparing what all, these 3 programs, the Colony, Lake Dallas, Little Elm, what they had to go through, these past 2 years in District 14 5A and now transitioning to a district like 8 5A. You look at some programs that might, benefit a bit more than others, because of the district change, and it feels like the Lake Dallas girls might fit that bill with what they've shown early on.
Oh, yeah. It's funny because I talked to head coach Trina Hutzel for the preview article that I did, and in no uncertain terms she said pretty much all of us are really glad that Prosper's gone. Prosper was ready to make the jump. Prosper was the boogeyman of that district in just about every sport, and it kind of kills the parity of the district when there's just one team that's going to go out and beat everyone and just go undefeated or nearly undefeated every year, and it's just a different vibe in the district now that Prosper is gone. They pick up the Denton programs. It seems like there's going to be a lot more parity kind of up and down, and like you mentioned, I think Lake Dallas is really poised to take advantage of that because last year they were very young. nearly got into the postseason, or at least got into the conversation with a pretty good second half. Didn't quite, crack that top 4 and get into the postseason. And they're young again this year, which is interesting. They have 5 freshmen, I believe, that are all, contributing, but they're young in a different way. I think if the people that were freshmen and sophomores last year are coming back as sophomores and juniors with 1 year of experience, with a little bit of confidence built up from a pretty good second half. You look at Sydney Frazier and net was a first teamer last year as a junior now. Addie Beesing is back, was a first teamer as a freshman, now as a sophomore and is a leader. Karina DePauli as a junior. So they have a lot of, sophomores and juniors, kind of that middle tier of, experienced players, girls that have been on varsity, that are captains now, some of them. And it seems like a different vibe a little bit, especially now that, like I said, kind of, the witch is dead. Prosper is gone, and there's not that kind of boogeyman at the top that kind of throws everything off, and it's almost like it was almost to the point of like playing Allen in football. Like you get momentum going, and then you play Prosper in soccer, and it's like, well, crap, we just lost 3-0 or whatever. That just totally blew us out of the water. Where do we even sit? You kind of have to just write that game off. So it's I think primed for another young Lake Dallas team to kind of take another step forward and get into the postseason.
Over on the boys' side of this district, let's stick with Lake Dallas because, last year was, by any estimation, the greatest season ever in Lake Dallas program history.
Not even close.
You look at what the Falcons were able to do as far as their first ever playoff win. Mm-hmm. They just the program milestones that they reached. Just about all across the board. Most shutouts, most goal. Most district wins.
That game was fantastic.
Oh yeah, just a almost, I don't want to say it was a freak occurrence or whatever, but just mere seconds away from potentially going 3 rounds deep in the playoffs. Lake Dallas should still be pretty good. Yeah, another team that should be kind of in that mix to contend for the district championship. I think them, and I think we picked them and the Colony as maybe the 2 initial front runners out of this district. Obviously they graduate, who was arguably the best player in the entire district last year, despite the presence of a Prosper. You had, Blake Henson was just a world beater for Lake Dallas last year. He's gone, but they've still got plenty of talent back. You look in goal with Caleb Irving. Perhaps maybe the best season ever by a Lake Dallas goalkeeper last year. And then some of the all-district caliber talent that they have back: Carlos Zamora, Brock Pope, Julian Fernandez, Anthony Patty. It's still there. Lake Dallas should still be pretty formidable. You look at so far. Some of the results that they've had. They had a rough start. They got drummed up by Birdville pretty soundly. They're in their first game of the season, but since then they've looked a bit more like the team that we saw last year. They come into district with some momentum on their side, having won 4 of their last 5, including quality wins over programs like Grapevine and R.L. Turner. So
won that tournament earlier in the season. That Saginaw tournament, I believe.
So
it's always good for them. So.
I don't know. I expect Lake Dallas to contend for a district championship. And
Pope especially, I think, is a guy that I kind of have my eye on as a guy that could pick up some of that slack, left over by Henson. I expect him to have a pretty good season.
But we'll find out, I guess, early on, much like you said, Little Elm getting a litmus test right out of the gates with the Colony on February 1st. Right there on Friday, you get Lake Dallas at the Colony right out of the chute. So should be a fun one as far as kind of sizing up a potential early front runner in 8-5A boys soccer. Let's see. Let's talk some Frisco ISD.
Let's do it.
Man. There's no way getting around it, man. You got to talk about this big old seething beast of a soccer district. It's produced both the state champions in district, not district, but Class 5A last year. It's Frisco ISD in soccer. There's probably not a sport pound for pound that Frisco ISD is better at than soccer. So
this might be the best soccer district in the state on both sides, boys and girls. So many coaches have told me that, and just watching the games, it's insane. So here's a little something I've noticed so far. So right now, the top 2 teams, 5 games in, they play 18 games in this district. It's insane. But 5 games in, the 2 top boys teams right now are Frisco and Frisco Heritage. Frisco is 4-0-1. Heritage is 4-1. Neither of those teams made the playoffs last year. Wakeland also, I've mentioned this a million times before, they finished 4th in district last year. They went on to win the state title. And so they're right there in the mix once again. They're with Lone Star and Centennial. Centennial is always a perennial power in boys soccer. as well. Reedy, a team that made the playoffs last year, they're 3-2. They're right there in the mix. Everyone is just beating up on everyone. The top 6 or 7 teams would make the playoffs in just almost every other district. And then you have teams at the bottom, Lebanon Trail, Memorial, new teams. Obvious reasons, starting new programs without seniors, and Liberty, they're having a bit of a down year so far, 0-4-1, but there's no top heaviness in the boys side, neither side really, boys and girls, and it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. I'm not saying it could happen, or it will happen, but Wakeland could miss the playoffs. That's how crazy this district is. They're not, but that's a possibility when you have teams like Lone Star, a team that beat Wakeland already so far, and Heritage and Frisco off to hot starts as well.
With the Wakeland boys, they kind of, I don't want to say they rope-a-dope their way through the regular season, but to do what they did last year and win a state championship as a 4 seed, are they showing? I don't know. What do you feel like their mentality is this season with the success that they've had in recent years?
They won't say it, but I feel like they're like Salina football. They'll cruise through the regular season, and then once the playoffs hit, it's like, all right, let's flip it up a notch. I'm not saying that they're not trying or not playing 100%, but then they turn up to 200% championship level. Andy Hull has come in here, like, what better way to start a tenure at a school than 2 years, 2 championships? It doesn't get any better than that. And they have the players, the guys, to win a third. They have last year's state tournament MVP and Mark Barbonas, who's only a junior now. One of the top goal scorers at the forward position. Manny Diaz De Leon, who's just on our guest interview as well. He was a state tournament MVP sophomore year. Other guys like Alex Wing. The list goes on and on and on.
With multiple state tournament MVPs
on the same
How many
team.
Schools can say that?
It's nuts. And I saw them play against Centennial the other night. That was a terrific game. Ended in a tie. After giving up a goal early in the second half. It's going to be a dogfight in that district. And it's the same with the girls. And you look at the girls, they have the defending state champions in Wakeland, who returned pretty much their entire roster, entire lineup, almost for the most part. And they may not be the best team in that district. And that's kind of a bit of a hot take, but the Frisco Independence girls are red hot. I saw them play a couple Fridays ago. It was a really windy game. It was a night that cold front was coming in on that Friday night, and so the wind was blowing. But man, they're looking at the state rankings. Frisco Independence is number 9. Wakeland is number 10. Or 7. They're 7 and 8, 9 and 10 on the 1 and 1. It's like you can flip them back and forth. But Frisco Independence, they are the real deal. They have they tied Wakeland, and their other 4 wins in district have been absolute blowouts over really good teams in that district. Heritage, Lone Star, yada yada yada. And then they've also beaten Mansfield, who's also state ranked. Non-district play. They have a girl named Landry Corbett, who we were talking before the podcast. When they have a throw-in on their side of the field, every time she'll do the whole, flip, put the ball on the head on the ground, whatever, yada yada, flip up and then throw it like 30 yards. And it's an absolute weapon. When I talked to both coaches after the game, Jimmy Langford was like, yeah, that's tough to stop. That's better than free kick. That's better than most corner kicks, stuff like that. And they just have studs all across the board. They scored 11 goals in their first 2 district games, and then they played Wakeland. They were down 2-0 in that game. Came back, scored 2 goals in the second half to tie it. So they're not scared of Wakeland. And that's going to be a game to watch, in the second half of district when they play that in 4 months or whenever it is, because the district's so big. But yeah, Independence and Wakeland are the 2 top dogs, but that's another district on the girls' side in Frisco where you have 6, 7, 8 teams. Lebanon Trail, I'm hearing, is a sneaky good team, by the way, and I think that could be a dark horse to make the playoffs as well in their first varsity season in 5A also.
Awesome. And that is some of the happenings over in Class 5A soccer. Some of the happenings in Frisco, some in Little Elm, Lake Cities, the Colony, you name it. So that's that is a look at some of the happenings in 5A soccer, and that will round out this edition of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. Appreciate you, Brian, Taylor, as well as Justin and Devin for tagging along on this. Folks, you enjoy your week. We will talk to y'all later.